Welcome to a Degenerate Friday edition of Bury Your Bookie. I'm Jeff Deforrest. The gentleman who's playing the role of A.J. Hawk for a couple of minutes here is the professor, our good friend who was dynamite last week on college football. We had him officially at 4-1. It might have even been 5-1. And if it were not for Brian Kelly and the fact that all of a sudden that crisscross in the red zone is now called pass interference, you would have had an undefeated week or just an unbelievable start to the college football season. So we'll get the professor's insight into what's happening on the college grid in just a few moments. If you are betting the games, BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for everything football. BetOnline has every stat, every matchup, and even live odds and spreads as the games are taking place. You think you know your stuff? Get in on the $200,000 mega contest and pick 5 games against the spread every week for your chance to win a weekly prize and also a share of $200,000. And when the game's over, head on over to the online casino. You can play poker, you can play blackjack, you can indulge in over 150 slot games to make available. Head to the website today to get in on all the action. Bet online. The game starts here. And with that, on this Degenerate Friday, we introduce our good friend and professor. Been handicapping for us for a long time. He invests his own money in this stuff. He does it very, you would have to say, astutely. And we've said this forever, Professor, that if the line makers were running the country, you wouldn't have to worry about listening to all these bizarre dissertations about who's going to fix the economy, whether it's going to be Kamala or Donny Boy. You would have no problems whatsoever. Our economics would make China look like it was a third world country if these odds makers were in charge of what's going on financially here in this world, as evidenced by last night's game where, and we have a good friend, we saw him post a ticket early on Facebook from the South Point Casino. He had ventured $220,000 to win $200,000 on the Baltimore Ravens. He was getting 3 points in this game. The line eventually went off at 2.5. So because he put it in early, it seemed like he was catching a little bit of a break. You survive, and you were a big highlight fan. You survive a series of miracles to get to the point where you're about to win a game, and it looks like you've won the game. And then on top of that, you've at least covered the spread because you're possibly going to go to overtime at the worst. And,
no, he was going for 2.
And he was going to go for 2. We saw Harbaugh running down the sidelines with the 2, and you're thinking, fuck yeah. And all of a sudden, you look and you see by a centimeter, after Lamar Jackson had overthrown Likely in the corner of the end zone, he had missed Flowers by a mile, claiming he was blinded by the sun.
No, he claimed actually he was not throwing to Flowers. He was throwing to number 7, whose name I'm forgetting, who stopped his route there. So we'll see. I mean, I don't know.
That was unfortunate. Yeah. And then you get just a miraculous final second play, and they look at it again, and the right call was made, obviously, in overturning the touchdown call, as you have the smallest bit. I mean, if this guy is wearing like court jester shoes instead of cleats, you have the touchdown. You would have, if the iron sheet caught that pass, you have the touchdown.
He's wearing size 9s instead of size 13s. There is no question that is a touchdown. I mean, it was a brutal beat. Obviously, in that situation, although a lot of people are heating up Lamar Jackson, and he probably deserves some heat for the 2 throws previous. In that situation, it is Likely's job to make sure he can get his feet down. Didn't manage to do that. But yeah, I mean, look, you're dancing in the aisles if you're Kansas City backers there, and you are crying yourself to sleep if you were Baltimore. So rough game all around. Yeah, public probably beats the books in that one because pretty much every sharp I know was all over Baltimore. But I think the number I saw was something like 82% of all tickets were on Kansas City. So, rough one. Well, it happens sometimes. After, the books were celebrating a big week in college the week before when Colorado went down to North Dakota. Colorado, the most public team of the week last week. Get them back with Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs in a rough ending.
And the over-under, of course, they pegged it right on the number, 47. So you got the old pusheroo, but it did look like you were going to be pushed off a cliff.
Nothing worse.
If you were an under player, which we had recommended.
you'd almost rather take the push take the brutal beat for Baltimore because it can't get any worse than have a push to open the season. Nothing worse than a push to open the year.
Yeah, so there was no result there. As we had Trey West with us yesterday, and he had a big inclination to unload on the under. So plays a lot of unders. This gentleman that joins us weekly here on Bury Your Bookie, and I mean, it looked bad. That was trending ugly early in the game.
Right?
Then it looked good for a long period of time. Looked like you had it locked up. Next thing you know, Baltimore starts staging this comeback, and it appears that the game is going to be on the
I mean,
side
I
of the
would
over.
say, not that if you had the under in that spot between Justin Tucker missing a kick, between Kansas City's struggles in the red zone, and then that last play, like that's one of the greatest pushes you'll ever get because you were clearly on the wrong side, but the football gods were smiling upon you just to get you that push in that situation. So if you're an under, I guess maybe you're happy with it because you're like, hey, look, I took the wrong one here and it worked out.
Yeah, we have some picks from one of our other handicappers that we're going to feature on the show, Mark Lawrence. And he's big with yardage. He always looks at teams that out yarded the other team.
Yeah,
Yardage
good
gain, big stat for
indicator.
him. Yeah. So Baltimore had out yarded the Chiefs by almost 100 yards. I think it was 99 yards in the game.
To be fair, some of that is because of field position. Kansas City got two balls in the red zone and another inside Baltimore territory, or right at the 50.
Yeah.
So that's one of those little hidden things that can impact that stat.
Toughest of beats, though. A lot of reasons to be on a Delana drip if you were a good friend that had the 220 to win 200,000.
Luckily, you got the whole season to make it up.
Yes, and hopefully, he has the wherewithal to withstand those kind of beats. Which you're always going to take tough beats. We talk about it all the time. All right, you killed him last week on the college slate. Although you would like to kill Brian Kelly, I guess facetiously, I
Just
say that.
awful game planning in the red zone. Really, right from the first drive, where he chooses to take no points, makes a terrible play call. It's like all they could think of to do in the red zone was to throw the back shoulder over and over again and hope someone caught one, which really didn't happen for LSU. So, I think everybody was a little bit surprised by the tone of that game. Both defenses vastly improved from last year. I personally, I think we got some good information on USC, who looks like an entirely different football team. And Moss, the quarterback for USC, looks to me like a guy who you may be talking about having a Joe Burrow-like rise from near complete obscurity to the first round. I mean, I impressed with everything he did. Built upon that bowl game last year, where we had questioned him, how legitimate. We'll talk about it when we get to bowl season, but at some point, you got to start to wonder how legitimate is any non playoff bowl game at this point with second and third teamers playing. So we had our doubts, but I think he answered every question, and I think both teams have something to look forward to coming out of that game, despite Brian Kelly's meltdown, both with his play calling and then after the game at the press conference. But overall, successful week, so nobody's complaining.
You were suggesting perhaps that there may have been some influence from Balco Labs with the USC players.
I mean, you saw the number.
They had bumped up considerably from what they were
made
last year.
Big graphic out of it of the game is one of the things we talked about. One of USC's defensive problems for the last couple of years is that physically they're just a small team. They mentioned during the game they had a linebacker who took some snaps last year, playing sub 200 pounds at the linebacker position. That's unheard of in college football in the last 30 years, much less in 2024. But they apparently gained a collective 1,400 pounds as a defensive unit over the course of the season. And if you saw the pictures they were showing, it ain't like they gained it by eating all you can eat pimento chicken sandwiches at the Chick-fil-A.
Yeah.
They gained it. It's all muscle. It looks like the Brian Cushing weight gain program is back on at USC after being gone for a while. After the departure of Pete Carroll there a decade and change ago.
Yeah, so they gained a dose of respect, sure.
Different team. We'll see how it holds up throughout the course of the season, but I was impressed.
All right, very good. All right, the key now, and I know you're not a huge fan overall of the card, and you were saying, and this is good because most people can't do this that are gambling. You have a big week where you make a bunch of scores and you write about a lot of things and you make
Yeah,
a
this
bunch of
isn't the
money.
week to give it back. This
Yeah,
is the
and
week to tread
now you're going to pull back a
cautiously.
little bit.
Yeah, if you are a units player, which you should be, by the way, anybody who doesn't do that, like you shouldn't like every game equal amounts. I know there's a lot of people out there. If $50 is your play, or 100, or whatever your, or 1,000, whatever your play is, there's too many people out there. Same amount every game. You shouldn't do that. You really should have at least a 1 to 5, if not a 1 to 10 scale. This game's worth 1. This game's worth 3. This game's worth 5. To me, everything's a one unit play this week. I think all the numbers are just about where I would personally make them, so not a ton of advantage. There are a few spots we're going to talk about, but I think this is a keep your powder dry kind of week. Try to get some winners, but in general, save it because there'll be better numbers as the season goes along. Excuse me.
All right, yeah, and I know it probably it's
Guys,
well
choking
disturbing
on
that.
my own bile.
Yeah,
As
yeah.
I say, there's nothing I
There's nothing
really
to
want to
play.
fire at. I'm not saying there's nothing to play. Like I said, I just don't
Yeah,
know if
no,
there's
it makes
anything worth
sense.
laying out on this week.
It's good advice for people out there because people talk about money management and all of these different things, and nice piece of alliteration, but most people don't take that into consideration as much as they should, including myself. So you have to have some form of discipline,
But I mean, as
and
a
it is a
horse
long
guy,
season.
as a horse guy, what you want to fire at the Kentucky Derby, where
Yes,
you're getting great value,
right.
should be different than what you're firing at the maiden flamer in race 1 at Gulf
The
Street.
fourth race at Beulah Park. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's a different element, and you should adjust consider.
All right, let's get into it. Let's give the people some plays here because we were on an earlier show and you had some ideas, and we actually got some concurrence there later on from Mark Lawrence on one of your picks. So here's a professor, the college football slate for this week. Go ahead and
All
fire
right.
away.
I will tell you, as you know, we like to pick the feature games. I don't think the feature games are particularly playable this week. They're all numbers that are almost exactly where I would put the number of the game. So that's a problem. We're talking, of course, of Michigan and Texas. I don't know that I think that game's got a good side. Tennessee and NC State, which is a big ABC night game. Again, don't know that I think that number's got a good side, but there are some, and they're definitely watchable games that you can enjoy. Start at noon with Oklahoma State and Arkansas. Okie Light covered for us last week and looked impressive in the passing game. Dude, I didn't think their running game looked as strong as it should. I thought Arkansas got off to a good start again against the nobody. They're playing Arkansas Pine Bluff, but still with Arkansas, you really get a sense kind of year to year when their offense is going to drag and when it's going to be a little bit sharper. It looks sharper this time around. They're getting north of a touchdown in Stillwater. Game opened at 7.5, got up to 8.5, pulled back to 7.5 last night. But I think Arkansas north of a touchdown is a solid play here. I don't know that I think they're going to win the game, but I definitely do think they'll be within one score. So give me the Hogs in a relatively low scoring game, even though the total's sitting there at 62 and a hook. I'm not taking the under. I will take Arkansas on the points in what I think will be a close, run-dominated, low-scoring game.
All right, Arkansas plus 7 and a hook over Oklahoma State. Pick number 1 from the professor.
3.5, the Cy-Hawk Bowl, the Iowa State Fair, whatever the hell you want to call it. Iowa and Iowa State. I will tell you up front, I don't think this game is going to be pleasant to watch. It almost never is. I think you're talking about two teams. They want to slog down. They're both defense. Don't get fooled because Iowa had a big week offensively against Illinois State. Illinois State did have a respectable team a couple of years ago, but they've lost everybody and they're back to their usual. Even among FCS teams, they ain't good. Iowa laying 3 to an Iowa State team that is returning 20 starters along both sides. This game did dip to 2.5, so watch your number here. Dip from 3.5 to 2.5, now back up to 3. In any case, we like the Cyclones to win this game straight up. +3, we'll take the points because the money line's not going to be worth any value there, so you might as well take the 3 points, particularly against an Iowa team that we know loves to kick field goals. So, something like 12-10 or 9-7 is certainly in the realm of possibility here. But look for the Cyclones to get a win in this one, I think for the first time in a few years. And don't be shocked if it keys Iowa State to have a pretty good year. There's a lot of people who look at them as the dark horse of the Big 12. I'm among them. Like their coach, and again, returning 20 starters. How are you going to question that? And you're getting points against an Iowa team that, yes, again, will be offensively challenged this year.
And it's a game, Mark Lawrence, World Championship handicapper, who has playbooksports.com.
I don't even have to ask what side he's taking because it's Mark Lawrence. He's always taking
always on the dog. He's never picked a favorite on any program we've done over the last 20 years, and puts out playbooksports.com, by the way, for anybody. The betting guides that he has are outstanding with the stats on both college and pro football. So, and he's not pushing anything when he puts these things out. Available in PDF, and definitely worth a look at playbooksports.com. The college and pro football guides that begin the season are valuable all the way throughout, all the way to the last playoff game. All right, so you have Iowa State getting 3 points against Iowa. I know you were looking at the Kansas-Illinois game as well.
I am, and this is one of the ones normally I tell you, get them today while the number – talk about this one. It kind of seems like the numbers actually trending our way. I've seen a lot of this morning. I don't want to throw out names. The big name internet handicapping personalities throwing out the other side of this one. We like Kansas here, laying 4.5 currently to Illinois. But again, this is down from 5 yesterday, and I'm seeing this as a very trendy pick for Illinois. So you might want to wait for tomorrow on this one because I think you might get another half a point of value here towards our way. I think Kansas is going to absolutely throttle Illinois. I don't think Illinois, despite the way Bielema wants to play football, is going to be able to stop Kansas defensively here. Love Kansas's quarterback, Jalen Daniels, one of the best dual threat QBs in the country. Love the running back, Neal, who is an absolute elite running back that people don't pay enough attention to because he plays for Kansas. Yes, Kansas is ranked, which is, unusual for Kansas. But look for them to score a bunch of points against the Illini. And definitely, Jayhawks, minus the 4.5. Again, might want to wait to pull the trigger on this one because I think the line might continue to trend downward our way.
All right, Kansas right now laying 4.5 against Illinois. And, this figures to be an entertaining game. And what we've seen where Colorado has put on, even in losses, a very sizzling type of show with their passing game. They're going to throw the ball a lot. That usually leads to people thinking that the over is a comfortable position to take in their games. Colorado and Nebraska,
agree with them.
What do you think?
Again, this is one where I'd say get it now. It's already up 2 points from yesterday. It was 54.5 yesterday. It's showing at 56.5 now. Don't care. I think this game's going to be well into the 60s, 70s. Would not shock me. Don't look for defensive stops here. I like Matt Rule as a coach at Nebraska. He's a great defensive coach, but he's got no building material to work with. You're not going to go – we talk about it in unit developments. You can go from terrible to below average or average. You can go from average to good, but you're not going from terrible to good or terrible to great in one season. I don't care how much you do in the portal. It just doesn't work that way. Units only gradually build year to year. Nebraska is not going to be able to cover. Look, there's not that many teams who have the personnel in the defensive backfield to cover Colorado. You can say what you want about Dion, but he has given Shedeur plenty of weapons in the passing game. They do have an elite wide receiver core. They will throw the football around. They will score points, and I think they're going to give up a ton of points all season long. And was impressed with Dylan Raiola in his Nebraska debut. It was against UTEP, so I don't know if you can read against better teams. But we saw with Colorado, like their defense is still awful. They couldn't stop the run or the pass against North Dakota State. And they're not going to do it against Nebraska here. Over 56.5 in that game.
All right, very good. The Professor, ladies and gentlemen. Arkansas, +7.5 over Oklahoma State. Iowa State getting 3 in concurrence with our good friend Mark Lawrence over Iowa. Kansas State laying 4.5 against Illinois. The line may go down, so catch it. where you can, but 4.5 looks good. And Colorado, Nebraska, over 56.5. Professor, we wish you all the luck in the world with this.
Have a
And
great college and NFL weekend, Dave.
tremendous all the way around. Thanks so much for joining us here on the show. The Professor, ladies and gentlemen, here on Bury Your Bookie. Just quickly, the college plays of Mark Lawrence, in addition to Iowa State +3, he likes Boise State getting 21 in their outing. And in the NFL, he's taken, of course, 2 dogs, the Colts +3, and the Rams getting 4.5. The Rams are taking on Detroit. He likes Sean McVay to outcoach Dan Campbell in that one. Rams getting 4.5 points in that ball game. These were the choices of Mark Lawrence of PlaybookSports.com.
Boise's a really interesting spot because Oregon looked so bad last week, so we'll find out.
Yeah, and Boise State, he had brilliant rationale as usual. He's a trend handicapper, Professor. I don't know if you're so much a believer in trends, but there's nobody that can quantify numerology with trend handicapping better than Mark Lawrence. So definitely worth taking a look at his website.
I've always loved Mark. Again, everybody steals ideas from everybody else, and he's definitely a guy to steal some concepts from.
Yes. All right. Well, good luck, everybody, on your wagers. It's going to be a wild time over the weekend. Professor, thanks so much for joining us. We'll catch you again next Friday, another Degenerate Friday edition of Bury Your Bookie. For the Professor, I'm Jeff Deforrest. Thanks so much for watching. Good luck, everybody, and we'll catch you on Monday, the next edition of Bury Your Bookie.